Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my overview of Wartales. I figure this is as good a time as any to return to this game. It went 1.0 probably about a year ago in 23. There's been DLC pipelining out, in fact some just came out the other day, and I believe as a cause of that, right now it's on a bit of a sale. So maybe you're looking at something to lose yourself in over the Christmas break. This I would highly recommend. I picked up all the DLC, dove back in, and while normally when I do an overview, I just put a couple of hours in, I've put more than that in this. I've started a new warband from scratch and this game is absolute crack. I've got a couple of my close mates onto it and they won't stop playing it either. So obviously I'm quite taken and I highly recommend this game. So what is it? Well look, to put it basically, it's a warband simulator, but the layers of gameplay there within are kind of multitudinous. There's almost unlimited stuff to do. It's very, very engaging. Now look, I'm not going to be so cheeky as to straight compare it to something like Battle Brothers, because that in its own right is an absolute god in the space. But safe to say, if you like one or the other, you will like the other as well. So if you haven't heard of this, but you've heard of Battle Brothers, maybe that's enough for you to pick this up straight away. But yes, ultimately, you generate a very basic starting warband mercenary troop, and you move through this sort of open world. It's region based. The first region is being sort of ravaged by a refugee problem across the borders, and a lot of the missions rotate around that. It is handcrafted over procedural. I mean, you'll bump into random encounters along the way, but this isn't some total procedural sandboxing. There are fixed towns and locations with kind of little missions that you want to go to and resolve. But at its core, yeah, you move around this world map and you then go and interact with points of interest, and that will result in sort of like a minigame turn-based battle, or often these kind of little diorama vignettes where you can interact with the environment through, mini games or talking to people. The combat is at first fairly simple and accessible. In fact, it on-ramps you very well. All your characters just start with a basic move and an attack, very freedom oriented. So like when you start a battle, you can freely move all of your dudes to the different starting squares. So you can set your line up and then you just start with whoever you want. In fact, as long as it's your turn, it's your team's turn. It might only be for one dude, but you can choose whichever dude that is. So there's a bit of flexibility in that. And over the course of it, the game is very show don't tell. It doesn't spoon feed you stuff. You learn by experimenting. You'll figure out quickly that you can surround enemies for a damage bonus, or even sort of defensively surround a tank to help him. There's like a one-on-one engagement scenario, so you will want to build out tanks that will lock dudes down, and if they want to try and disengage, they have to pay the price in an attack of opportunity for moving away. The system is really solid, and as your characters level up, they will have like an XCOM-like, fairly rudimentary leveling tree, but there are so many different classes and then subclasses within there, you're going to have all sorts of unusual different combinations, and that's where the combat interplay starts to get interesting. You sort of have these action pips that to your whole war band. How do I describe? They're kind of like mana in a way. So reference your starting dude, he has an attack, he has a move. As he levels up, he's going to get more abilities or passives or whatever that will use up those points, as in if he wants to do this extra special attack, he can use the global mana point to go against it. And if the dude's got 10 abilities, he can do all 10 of the abilities as long as you can afford them. So you can really make some powerhouse scenarios. The game encourages a lot of experimenting. And then likewise, maybe you have a tank and he has a passive, for each dude that he's adjacent to at the end of his turn, he generates some temporary mana as well. So you sort of have these generators within the combat. But eventually that mana will run out, and this lines up with the overworld map that your warband will also fatigue. As they move overland, they kind of have a master stamina bar, and at the end of that, you have to rest. I mean, you don't have to, but if you get in a combat while your dudes are tired, it's a bit of a death sentence at the negatives that will apply. So you stop at camp, you have this cool camp screen, and at the beginning, it's just putting dudes around the bonfire, and you'll get like a sort of happiness bonus to your warband. But you'll get, tinkering benches. You can build out more things for more classes, and it's wild how much different stuff there is. More obvious things like getting a cooking pot and allocating a dude. You give you guys secondary subclasses, and there's so many of them, and they're so interesting. but maybe you make a dude a cook and you allocate him to the cooking pot when it comes to camp time. Or, I built a bloody, don't judge me, I built a bloody whipping post and I've allocated a dude to there, and so he can basically make dudes overproduce by belting them, but it's not really good for morale. I've also got like a little brewing station where a dude's chucking, fruit into there and he's turning it into ale or brandy or whatever. I've got a couple of ponies that tag along and they increase my carry capacity of my group. I've named them something stupid like Andrew and Steven because that's all I ever do. I'm predictable. But I've got like a hitching post to add to them, and that increases, I think, their carry capacity for the entire troop. So you can see there's this fidelity. There's these layers upon layers of interesting systems. And like I said, they all have different side subclasses, and it's all about juggling which ones are important to. Do you want to go more in a traditional, like, let's make one of the dudes an armorer? You can't have a forge in your camp, at least in the early hours. So you're going to have to go into a town and go to the local forge, and then you can make equipment. Maybe you create a mini economy feedback loop there and you sell those items to get more money and then outfit your warband. Maybe you want to go down more of a, let's get a thief on the team. You can steal just about anything that's not nailed down. There is a wanted system, kind of a Grand Theft Auto wandering police patrols in a way, but you can dance with that. So it's actually really open-ended. In the first region, there's like a prison tower. You can go and buy shackles and rope from them, and if you surround dudes and wound them enough in combat, you can imprison them and you can sell them as prisoners. There's a lot of really interesting things going on here. And this is all just in the first biome I've spent hours and hours in. You've got also, more gathering subclasses, like maybe you find a wood chopping area, so you have a dude as a woodcutter, and then you engage with this really rudimentary but addicting mini game to chop, and if you nail it, you get more wood, and that goes back into the robust crafting system. It's not just armor. You might have an alchemist to make medicine. We talked about the chef. You can make a whole bunch of different salted meats, because when you do camp, when your warband is fatigued, you have to feed them over X level to keep them from being unhappy, but on top of that, you can give them like alcohol to make them even cheerier and augment these sort of over happiness bonuses. It's almost actually a happiness mechanic inherited from one of their other games. This is Shiro Games. They made Northgard, another excellent game, very different, but interesting systems that are just addicting and work very well. On top of that, there's all this DLC that's added in. I haven't really engaged with all of it. The most recent one is this invasion, but that's in a different region that I'm not up to at the time of this recording. But there's a ship that I'm trying to repair on the South Bank, but I can't get ahead making money because every couple of rests you have to pay wages to your dudes, so you have to take contracts and hunt bounties. So there is this kind of, it's not a death spiral, but it is difficult to shake out a profit, this feedback loop of paying the boys and trying to get ahead as a warband and trying to find that sweet spot between how many dudes you have on the payroll covering as many bases as possible. But there is a DLC that I've been fiddling around with where you can buy your own tavern and crew that, and it's its own side game where you recruit these civilians to work the bar, work the cellar. You fill out the play space with different benches. There's clientele you're trying to invite in. There are opposing taverns on a sort of leaderboard, and you want to try and send spies to steal their recipes. It's its own game in its own right. It's very addicting. Anyway, I'm singing high praise. This game is dangerous in that you will find yourself just doing one more turn at 3 a.m. in the morning. It has that quality, and I recommend it very highly. Anyway, look, I think I've covered enough to get people interested. Wartales is a fantastic game, and I highly recommend it to just about anyone. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.